I'm joined now by Michael Eric Dyson, Distinguished University Professor of African American and Diaspora Studies at Vanderbilt University and co-author of the book Unequal, A Story of America. Also with me, CNN political commentator Bakari Sellers. Glad to have both of you here. I'll begin with you, Professor. Michael, the floor is yours. What is your reaction to the unapologetic response, albeit not a surprising one?
Well, Laura and Bakari, we know this man is an imperial ninny hammer. He's an autocratic mooncalf. He's an inveterate featherbrain. So we know the nincompoopery and the nitwittery that emerged from him are for entertainment of white supremacists and racists. This is our racist in chief. This is a man who is making it extremely clear and transparent that he disregards the life of Black people, that he disrespects the lives of African Americans, that he dehumanizes Black people by going after the biggest Black, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Statements have been made before that she doesn't belong in Vogue magazine. She belongs in, the scientific journals or National Geographic because she is an ape. The dehumanizing impulse to call Black people apes is something deeply entrenched in not only American culture, but in Western civilization. Long before Charles Darwin began to talk about the evolution of human beings, Black people were seen as simians, as apes, as animals who were incapable of self-government. Therefore, the justification of going to Africa to extract them from their resting place in their native soil and to bring them here under the civilizing impulse of white Christianity to save us. This is what this man represents. He has no apology. He has no brain. He has no conscience. He has no soul.
Bakari, we should point out that aside from Tim Scott, senator from obviously your home state, it's really only been a handful of Republican lawmakers who are condemning this in a full-throated way. And on the flip side, you have people like the president's son, Don Trump Jr., who's posting, quote, "Would be nice if we had more Republicans who didn't immediately fall for every left-wing media hoax." Was the backlash we saw today from Republicans even approaching enough?
Well, I think first, Michael Eric Dyson stated it correctly, and I think we have to be unequivocal in calling a thing, which is that Donald Trump is not just someone who uses racism as political currency, but Donald Trump himself is a racist. Many of the events and instances of racism that you chronicled in your monologue are so true, from 1973, where he was sued for refusing to rent to African Americans, to the birtherism, shithole countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But let me explain, as Dr. Dyson was doing, why this is so cringeworthy, even beyond that, why this is so important. It's simply because by calling African Americans, by showing Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes, by not apologizing for this, it furthers that notion where we don't get the benefit of our humanity. And what happens when you don't give a people the benefit of their humanity is you are able to treat them less than. And so whether or not it's the state-sanctioned violence that we've seen with Keith Porter by an unarmed ICE agent, or whether or not it's the miseducation of the Negro that we've seen throughout the South, or the fact that Black folk don't have access to quality health care in many of these places, or you're drinking unclean water, or you, Laura, or my wife, Ellen, are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth than their white counterparts. All of this coalesced into one envelope is the violence that we talk about when you don't give people the benefit of their humanity. And so they're very tangible political and policy outcomes that come from the racism that we're talking about. I think Dr. Dyson would agree with me. I don't care when you call me nigger, but the problem that I have is when you have the systemic racism that comes from racists in these positions of power that continue to keep people like the three of us in a situation where they have their foot on our necks.
Your response, Professor?
Yeah, absolutely right. The name is one thing. To dehumanize us through that name, the most dehumanizing name and nomenclature in Western civilization, because attached to it, as Attorney Sellers is saying, is action. It's not simply a rhetorical gesture made in an abstract condition. When he says, I don't like the Somalians, and then he sends ICE to Minnesota looking for the Somalians, there's a direct line of correlation, of empirical verification, of an internal belief, I don't like them, and an external action, they will die. This is the legitimation of Black death as a spectacle that can be accepted and perpetuated by a white supremacist bigot in the White House who continues to radiate the most intense forms of hatred of the other. And watch out, folk out there. He's starting with Black folk. It ain't only us. Poor white people are in the offing. Latinos are in the offing. You know the famous Martin Niemöller poem, you know, I didn't do anything when they attacked everybody else. Then they came for me, no one was left. We must see during Black History Month, a man who says that Black history is not something special or significant, but part of American history. Would it be so that you recognize that American history is Black history? But what he means to do is to marginalize us and to decenter us because he can't stand in his myopic narcissism one moment of attention drawn away from him. Black people have survived, Black people will survive and continue to face this kind of bigotry.
I want to give you an opportunity for a quick last word, Bakari, because it is stunning to people that this would not be even politically disqualifying. What's your reaction?
Well, I'm not stunned, but I mean, I'm actually extremely hopeful, and I'm faithful. I mean, I'm very much reminded during Black History Month that when we were brought to this country, we were stripped of everything but our faith and our hope. And the reason that I'm faithful and the reason that I'm hopeful is I am more concerned about the individuals who wrap their arms around Donald Trump. I'm not concerned about the racist himself, but I'm interested to see the people who find his behavior to be immoral, unethical, whether or not they still stick with him because they appreciate the outcomes, or whether or not their heart is pulled in a different direction. You know, the book of James teaches us faith without works is dead. And so I do have faith in tomorrow, but I want to see the work that is done, particularly by white evangelicals and white young people, as they see the bigotry, the hate, and they also see the violence with their own eyes, that this is not the country that we believe in. This is instead the country that has written all of us, particularly Black folk, a check that's been marked insufficient funds. So my hope is that tomorrow will be better than yesterday.
I'll leave on that high note. Michael, Bakari, nice to see you both. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Up next.